In a quiet village that sat between dense forest, there lived a girl named Ella. She was 11 with a gentle smile and eyes that carried the innocence of childhood. Her life, however, was far from joyful. After her mother's sudden death, Ella's father Thomas remarried a woman named Margaret. From the moment Margaret stepped into their home, Ella knew no peace. Margaret was cruel and cold, but her father's silence hurt even more. Margaret polluted his mind with bad words, making him believe Ella is a witch sent to frustrate the family. He no longer cared for Ella the way he used to. Days turned into months, and Ella lived her days in a gauge of painful threats and harsh punishments. She became a shadow in her father's house, invisible and unwanted. Margaret sends Ella to hawk on the streets before going to school, things her mother never did, and as a result of this, her grades went extremely low, therefore raising concern amongst the school authorities. One day, her school principal, Mrs. Dora, stopped by her house, but right from the gate, she was told by Margaret that Ella no more lived there. She just left for Port Harcourt this evening. Poor girl, since her mother's departure, she's never been the same. I hope the environment over there favors her. With these words, she said goodbye to Mrs. Dora. And that day was the last day Ella ever went to school, because that evening at the dining table, Margaret made it known to Ella that she wouldn't be going to school anymore because she and her father can't afford her fees. Ella searched for defense in her father's face, but all she saw was pity. That night, Ella couldn't sleep. All she did was cry her eyes out till dawn. That morning, Ella woke up to Margaret screaming her name. She quickly adjusted her pajamas and made her way down to the sitting room, where a boiled-up Margaret stood. Immediately she saw Ella. She moved closer and landed a hot slap on her forehead, causing the poor girl to slip on the tiles and hit her head hard. That is for making me shout like a mad woman. Next time, I will poke you in those useless eyes of yours. Now, before I finish these words, I want to see you in your market dress. That day at the market, Ella watched with tears as Margaret sold her mother's expensive jewelries, clothes, shoes, bags, and wigs. I'm selling this because I can't harbor another woman's belongings in my home, a witch's belongings at that, Margaret kept saying on their way to the market. That night, Ella decided to confront her father, not knowing that will be the worst day of her life. While she was complaining to her father about everything that has been going on, Margaret came in, catching them unawares. So you are now gossiping about me to my husband, you witch. She dragged Ella by the hair and hit her face on the wall, causing her to fall flat and cease breathing. Thomas froze when he saw his daughter on the ground. "What have you done?" he demanded, his voice shaking. "Get the keys, let's drive her to the hospital. We can't let her die." Immediately, Margaret cut him off. "Do you want to go to prison? Do you want the whole city to know you couldn't control your daughter? Do you want to be called a murderer?" Without waiting for his reply, she ordered him to get an old blanket from the storehouse. Numbed and terrified, Thomas obeyed. They wrapped Ella's body tightly, ignoring the way her head lowered to the side. At midnight, they carried her deep into the woods. Margaret held the flashlight, ignoring the owls and crickets. Thomas' labored breathing and the crunch of leaves beneath her feet. They stopped at an old oak tree, its branches reaching out like claws. Margaret handed the shovel to Thomas. "Dig," she hissed. Thomas dug tirelessly for what felt like hours. When the hole was deep enough, they lowered Ella's body into the ground. Her locket slipped out of the tap, but neither of them noticed. Margaret ordered him to cover the grave quickly. He did as instructed, exhaling loudly as he threw soil into the grave. When everything was done, Margaret hugged Thomas as they walked back to the house. Years passed, but the memory of that night never left them. Thomas turned to alcohol, trying to drown his guilt, while Margaret buried herself in denial, pretending everything was fine. But Ella didn't stay buried. On the anniversary of her death, strange things began to happen. The house grew unnaturally cold at night, and faint whispers echoed through the hallways. Thomas woke to the sound of footsteps outside his bedroom. Margaret saw her first. Late one night, she turned to find Ella standing in the doorway, her eyes hollow, her small frame dripping with dirt. "You left me," the ghost said, her voice no louder than a whisper. Margaret screamed, and Ella vanished before Thomas could come running. The haunting grew worse. Mirrors cracked without reason. Furniture moved on its own, and Ella's faint sobs filled the house. One night, Margaret awoke to find herself covered in dirt, her hands caked with mud. The bed was surrounded by footsteps, small bare ones leading to the door. Thomas was tormented by Ella's voice, soft but filled with pain. "Why didn't you save me, Daddy?" she would ask over and over, driving him to the brink of madness. On the 10th anniversary of her death, their torment became so high. The walls bled, the air became tight, and Ella's ghost appeared before them one last time. She stood between them, her dirty face twisted in sorrow and rage. "You buried me alive," she whispered. "Now, it's your turn." The next morning, neighbors found the house empty. Thomas and Margaret were never found again. The police searched the whole apartment for an evidence, but found nothing except for a sentence written in a child's handwriting on the wall. "You left me once, but now we can be together forever because I am free." Moral lessons. Number 1. The truth cannot stay buried forever. No matter what you do, no matter how deeply hidden, it will eventually come to light one day. Number 2. Neglect and cruelty can have devastating consequences. Be warned. Number 3. No matter who you are married to, don't make them change your heart towards your children. Please like, share, and comment on this video. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Bye.